Okay, Dr. K.C.Vardachari, Volume 1, topic difficulties in yoga. Though most writers on yoga speak about its efficacies, not enough has been written on the difficulties and tribulations met by the sadhakas. There are undoubtedly some lucky souls who have been able to devote themselves to one kind of yoga and never had the misfortune of having to grapple with problems of belief. Nothing succeeds like success. A large number of men in the modern world are not so lucky. All of us are born into traditions built up into a kind of system, steel frame or otherwise equally strong, and find that yoga itself is an attempt to get out of the social systems and frames. Or to use expressive language of the Vedanta, sheaths, koshas, or wells. All religions are such koshas, treasuries, and bind man to them firmly. In this world, where freedom is the one thing that matters in social and political life, it becomes doubly necessary to enlarge the freedom eternal and to enlarge the goal of all religions and spiritual endeavor. Therefore, in the disciplines of religions, social life seems to be perplexing and self-defeating. Paradoxically, though everyone insists on conformity or obedience to the dictates of the system of freedom. Further, there are indeed quite a number of competitive systems, some of them promising the freedom which the traditional religion or cult seems to curtail or does not deliver. Thus, in the context of converting religions, the conscience of man is no longer at peace with his religious heritage or tradition form. Either he is forced to question the foundations of his traditions, their whys and wherefores, and seek to verify in his own life and experience their validity or claims, or he is made to consider and discuss or have a dialogue with the other claimant to his heart and mind. Therefore, with a world that has begun shrinking in size and limits, the challenges are much more than the mere exchange of information or comparison of coherencies or degrees of acceptabilities. A scientific decision demands the attainment of goals which man has been fixing as ultimate and necessary to his own perfection and realization or fulfillment. However much then we are free in our educational life in respect of accessibility of contemporary and ancient material from all over the world, the conflicts within the mind of man, tethered to his past, are greatly disturbing. This is one of the main difficulties in modern man's search for his soul, and we are finding it difficult to gauge the depths of this reaction. I'll stop here because he has given background so far.
Yeah, this research says, with the availability of so much information around, uh, it's because the person is conflicted because of the variations in the beliefs, and there are certain aspects of religions which are competing with each other, offering a freedom from the restrictions of the earlier paths or religions or traditions, whatever that person is following. That was much more because the information available is tremendous. And the modern man is more at a loss to understand how one has to adapt or one has to progress in his quest for the freedom. That's what uh, Dr. KCV is trying to explain.
It's leading to more and more conflicting
ideas. Yeah, that's true. So he's not able to find his uh, uh, path or which way to proceed and how to proceed and which one to choose.
Okay, I'll continue. The polytheistic worship was a difficult to those whose goal was the one reality. They had either to deny the many by accepting the one, or deny the one by accepting the many. By Advaita had brought out one kind of one-pointed devotion. The dilemma posed by Dvaita had brought out another kind of difficulty as to how one could simultaneously worship or adore many gods or manifold existence. The difficulty is similar to that which is found in polygamous existence. There is, of course, one way of resolving this difficulty, and that is to consider that all gods are indeed the one God in his manyness, and similarly, the one God it is who has become the many for the sake of his devotees, who are indeed many. All this is very difficult for persons who have been shattered in their traditional faiths, though the vasanas or tendencies had been mutilated but not completely served. The lovers of Shiva find it difficult to shift over to the love of Vishnu and would like to interpret all divine forces in terms of Shiva. Similar is the case with the lovers of Vishnu. So too with Shakti and Brahma. We have a subtle attempt at bringing about or building up hierarchies with our pet idol or God as highest. Some have sought to go behind these attempts, which are so well elaborated in the different kinds of Puranas, which is traditional lore, by recourse to connotative meanings of names of gods and establish to their own inner satisfaction that all names and therefore all works and activities and births or incarnations of gods or of the one God refer to the one ultimate being spoken of as the reality. That is Sat. Sat eva saumya idam agrasit. Ekam Sat. But all these rationalizations or even highly sophisticated experiences do not go far. Men have a strange but compelling pullback to their sectarianism. Even as in social life, men revert back to their communalisms or casteisms to explain away their failures or their sense of humiliation. This atavism, social or religious, is no less part and parcel of inner life of man, as it is in biological survival or conflict complexes. This reversion is one of the most significant facts in racial and communal suspicions that today make religious life and political coexistence impossible. Further, institutions, by developing loyalties, tie up the individual ultimately to intolerance and misunderstandings. You can stop here.
accepting the one ultimate being is sometimes difficult for people who are used to the polytheism. And shifting from one system to another system, like the Shaivism to Vaishnavism, and any maybe a different religions are also very difficult for the people. It leads to an inner conflict. That's what he wants to say. And this conflict is the one, or the suspicion of each other is the one which is relevant in this communal intolerance, which we see nowadays. And this conflict is the one which, as Madhava says, is leading to the raga and dvesha in the heart of the people. And that is the one which is hindering our spiritual progress. That's what Madhava always says. So that is the problem. And what more is that institutions, by developing loyalties, tie up the individual ultimately to intolerance and misunderstandings. So if we accept a system or a institution or a thought process, then we are tied to that one, and that binds us to that thought, and again curtails our freedom, and that leads to intolerance and misunderstandings. Like we say, only Ramchandra's Raj Yoga is the best in the world, all other systems are not good enough. But we should see that God has given a system to everyone to progress towards Him. Whatever is convenient to Him, whatever is accessible to Him, whatever is easy to Him, to His level and understanding, according to His level and understanding. So, this dogmatism or fanatism is another problem which is creating the conflicts and the intolerance. Vijayadhar, you want to say anything?
No, sir. Mostly you covered it. Same thing goes with religious intolerance.
Exactly, yeah. Shintra, we'll continue.
Okay. Once. Though we have all been striving for the abolition of these subtle, though thick barriers in all our walks of life, we do not appear to have gone at all towards the goal of a barrierless social or religious existence. All remain notwithstanding human desires. I have found that this atavism or regression to cult and sect, caste and creed, race and place and language plays a very difficult role in yoga as in everything else. A universal consciousness, qua universal, cannot recognize these difficulties as necessary for evolution and harmony. Further, whatever may be the truth of each one of these, and their values divested of the five fundamentals of Yama, namely adherence to truth, non injury, non thieving, non robbery, and chastity, or devotedness to the pursuit of ultimate known as Brahman. They are just hindrances and positive obstructions, and seen on the cosmic consciousness and higher than the cosmic consciousness. Therefore, those Abhyasis who are soaked in loyalty to those traditional and environmental inbuilt complexes cannot but find themselves in difficulties. The double loyalty is a great hindrance. Therefore, gurus insist on the single devotion and request that during the period at least of the sadhana, they may give a trial to the efficacy or the non traditional or single tradition as against the multiple traditional conformity that makes a mockery of our devotional life. Therefore, Sri Ramchandra's Raj Yoga, like the earliest Vedic invocation, says that our loyalty on goal must be for the ultimate reality. Nothing less should be aimed at. Further, It has been our experience that those who seek spiritual importance or recognition and influence usually import these difficulties into their lives. Thus, one Mr. S, who wished to appear an advanced soul when not recognized so by the master, turned against him and left the sadhana. Another Mr. G brought in his own concepts of greatness and could not accept a master who was regionally or by caste different from himself and wished to set up himself as master. Another Mr. K sought to attain the ultimate but was torn between the traditional method of worship by and and ended up in serious conflict with one of those many individuals, self-saviors of Dharma through lectures and orations and other occult practices intended to enhance worldly power and so on. Still, another Mr. T, himself to be directly in touch with the highest powers and claimed visions and so found that these were not given to him by the president. He also had ambition to become, and when denied that, turned away from. Known that many seek entrance into a new societies to meet with more opportunity. So humility is the essence of spiritual evolution, and any ambition should be recognized as hindrance to the ultimate realization, because these are known by seers to be obstacles and perversions of the real aspiration. This is the first difficulty.
This is a problem of gurudom that we see in many organizations.
Yeah, it is. It is elucidated that the same problem was there when Babuji was there, and some people have left him because of their egocentric ideas and problems. So he emphasizes that. Yeah, he emphasizes that humility is the essence of spiritual evolution. Without that, probably we cannot proceed further. Earlier, he has said that the five fundamentals of Yama, the Satyam, Ahimsa, Asteyam, Aparigraham, and Brahmacharyam, are very important for success of any system of yoga. Not only ours, any system of yoga. And without that, whatever progress we make is probably not useful. That's what he earlier said that. And now he emphasizes on the humility. That without humility and surrender, probably we cannot progress in the spiritual path. And as Vijayadhar says, the ambition, that is the entitlement of Gurudam or whatever it is a hindrance to the ultimate realization. Because it takes us from the actual aspiration, that is oneness with the divine. Vijayadhar, anything?
No, this is a very important point because we have seen some of this problem even recently.
Yes, yeah.
See it even in the recent events that unfolded after SAR. So it's very important to understand.
Understand this, yeah. That humility is the essence of the spiritual evolution. That is the one which is most important.
So humility is the essence of spiritual evolution, and any ambition should be recognized as a hindrance to the ultimate realization, because these are known by seers to be obstacles and perversions of the real aspiration. This is the first difficulty. The basic fault of most seekers seems to be this subtle obstruction proceeding from oneself, entrenching itself on traditional and other conventions and complexes of worships and customs. The second source of difficulties is the lack of siddhis, attainments, such as are exhibited by miracles. These siddhis are said by the Yoga Sutras themselves to be hindrances to the ultimate realization. The usual yoga practices sometimes lead to the awareness of one's miraculous powers, and this in its train brings into play more and more of egoism, concealed under the name of service to humanity and amelioration of misery of man. To be able to give man his life, his progeny, the preservation of his wealth or its acquisition and health, and so on, is undoubtedly a great service. So men go to saintly men or spiritual men to gain this, as in the opinion of the ordinary man. It is one of the basic acquisitions of a spiritual man to have the miraculous power to give these necessities and needs of man. The sadhaka therefore may find that these miraculous powers are not exhibited by masters of the Sri Ramchandra's Raj Yoga, and even those who are said to have evolved or gone up the ladder of spiritual ascent high enough do not exhibit them. So here he's hinting that second difficulty is people cannot come over the fact that a spiritually advanced person should have some miraculous powers or siddhis. But Master has a different view on miracles. He says it's somewhere else he says it's a dexterous fraud which played by on the credulous masses by the gurus. So acquisition of siddhi should never be our motivation in Sri Ramchandra's Raj Yoga. That's the point.
Is the hallmark of a sadhaka going higher up in his sadhana. That is a misconception some people have. That
Correct,
also should
correct.
be, yeah, because we see some ideas like that. So that also has to be wiped off.
Correct.
Our earlier learning education of yoga equates yoga means siddhi, which is not the case actually. That's what
Exactly.
I think.
It's actually the opposite.
Hmm.
That is the hindrance to your ascent in the path. So even if you have them, you should ignore them and should not exhibit them even if you have. And the best example is Lord Hanuman. Even though he has so many powers, he never exhibited any of them, or even doesn't know that he has those powers at all. Till he was reminded that for the purpose of this work, you have these powers and you need to exhibit them. Till such time, he never thought that he has the powers. So that is the humility he has.
Okay, I will read ahead. The yoga of the Kundalini school almost affirms that for one who has awakened his Kundalini, the power of omniscience and omnipotence is available. Perhaps it would be claimed that these purely godly attributes are exercising, sorry, inevitable acquisitions. So many seek this attainment not for the sake of realization of the ultimate, but for the sake of enjoying sovereign power. In this sense, Kundalini becomes exhausted and takes its revenge on the individual and forces him to realize that it is itself a hindrance to the ultimate. It is the greatest force of Maya, illusion, and one should not be tempted to play the role of the individual egoist at cosmic and supracosmic levels. So true is this that the Puranas and Vedas hold that only one person, the Supreme Purusha alone, is the master of Maya. The rest are bound by it, creatures deluded by it. The Supreme Nature is something that is beyond all Maya or its rings. It is beyond all egoisms and elements of individuation. Therefore, Sri Ramchandra's Raj Yoga holds that realization comes when one passes beyond the central region itself, which is beyond Parabrahmanda, Brahmanda, and Pinda Pradesh. That is the reason why even gods who are masters of the Brahmanda are not said to be free individuals who have realized the ultimate. Though they are very much higher than the ordinary man, yet wallowing in the mire of the Anda and Pinda. Therefore, also it is said that unless even the subtlest kind of egoism is surrendered, no further progress is possible. And perhaps the fall from God's state is necessary for ascent. This may be true, or else it is just possible also that one could, with the help of the Divine Master, go higher by submitting himself to the higher absolute. This was perhaps the meaning of the parable of the lifting of Govardhan Giri, where Indra himself submitted to the power of Sri Krishna, the avatar. Again and again, the gods humbled themselves before they had the vision and access to the absolute.
Here he says that it's very difficult to understand the Maya or go beyond Maya, because as Madhav always says, in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Mama Maya Jurachaya Anjipe. And Lord himself says, it's very difficult to go beyond my Maya. So even the gods have submitted to that fall of or getting into that Maya. Then ordinary humans, it is very difficult unless you are very, very alert and develop the humility and the surrender. Then only you can proceed further.
Right. So there's another point here, like
Yeah.
I think there's a mistake here in the last line that it should be small gods. There's a capital G there should be a small g.
Gods, yeah.
But the gods have power over certain part of the nature, right? Even they need to be humbled.
Yeah.
If they want to ascend. And that is what Lord Krishna taught to Indra, Varun Devata.
In one of the Upanishads, after the Devasura war, the gods think that they have won the war because of their own power. And to teach them a lesson, the Supreme Being appears in a distant shadow form. So they decided who that is, and they want to know who that is. So they sent one of the gods the Agni initially to check who it is. So this gentleman goes and there and asks, who are you? He in turn asks, who are you? He says, I am Agni, and what you can do? I can burn anything in this world, in this universe. Okay, he puts a grass root in front of him and asks him, you burn it. Whatever he did, he could not burn it. So he accepts defeat and immediately felt the humility and comes back. Then the Vayu was sent. He told the Supreme Being, I can lift anything. I have that power. Okay, lift this one, he says. He failed again and walks back. Then Varuna comes. I can push anything with my power. Then he could not do anything to this grass root. He goes back. Then Indra comes. Then with Indra, then he says, I am the Lord of everything. I can do anything. Can you do anything to this grass root? And he tried whatever he could. He could not do anything to that grass root. Then he understands his limitations and prostrates before the Supreme Being and asks, who are you? And the Supreme Being disappears and the Devi comes, the consort of the Supreme Being. But in the Upanishad, they say it is the Ishvara, and then the Shakti comes in front of the Indra and explains the reality of the Supreme Being. That is how the gods were taught their limitations and the need for the surrender and humility in front of the Supreme Being. And they were told that all the power they are getting is only because of the Supreme Being. It is a delegated power and not their own. So to function in the universe, they are delegated powers, and they are not the original powers they have. So that is what the Upanishad says. So it is the Devatas themselves failed to understand the Maya of the Supreme Being. So only through surrender and humility we can understand and reach the ultimate. That's what Dr. KCV says here.
Yeah.
Anything each other?
No, you covered it well.
Yeah.
I'll read further.
Yeah.
The power seeker is unfortunately incapable of going beyond the levels of Brahmanda or cosmic consciousness. Even if he is such as does not slip back into the lower level of the world. The Abhyasi seeks the ultimate peace and reality, and as such, the claims of his miraculous powers for the sake of humanity cannot be satisfied or answered. No one should attempt to answer the demand for miracles. Sri Ramchandra states that these powers are there to be used when required, and when they are not used, they are not required by the ultimate. Though miracles are said to qualify a person for sainthood, according to some religions, yet miracles by themselves mean nothing at all, except as obstacles to spiritual ascent for the individual. Exercising them. To yield to popular demand in this respect is to deviate from the path of realization. Impatient though man is, yet it is good for him to learn to be patient and resigned to the natural development that has been initiated by the transmission of the Supreme Consciousness. One thing seems to be axiomatic. Our human consciousness is very much limited and spatially and temporarily circumscribed. Consciousness. Further, what is revealed by it are related to matters of immediate concern to life and property, and is almost helpless beyond them. The cosmic consciousness is indeed different. Beyond that are levels of consciousness which might well be called by different names, for their description seem to be inversion, or rather originals of our inverted consciousness. So much so, to speak of its powers and possibilities is beyond our consciousness itself. As one proceeds on the path, one transcends the regions of light and heaviness, and attains regions of lightness and subtle original intuitions and insights, where the light of our comprehension fades away, leaving us naked in the presence of the Supreme in all its purity. The abhorrence of isolation or kaivalya is one of the characteristics of the modern age. Man is conceived as inalienably a social being, and society is the very condition of human or of all existence. This social conception has influenced man's traditional values so much that the fact that he is an individual spirit and that he has a trans-social function and destiny are forgotten. Yoga has been accused of aiming at kaivalya or isolation or freedom from all bonds, including the sangha or community. If ego is one barrier, sangha is the other. Both could be bonds for the man who seeks something more valuable than either, for example, God. The attainment of the purest state of spirituality is called kaivalya, and not what it had later on been considered to be, a kind of isolationism. It is similar to the ekanta bhava or ekanti bhava of soul and complete experience of reality as it is in itself, without any kind of limitation or subjectivity.
I think the bond which is referring to as including sangha or community is related to groupism or being part of some group.
Yeah, sangha is association, right? So the same thing which this message started with, right? That we don't want to break away notions imposed on us by the ideology we adhere to. So I think it's the same thing coming up here. Community.
Yeah. Basically the groupism.
Yeah.
You may be part of the group, but still you may not have a groupism. It is not the exclusiveness. It should be the inclusiveness of everyone. What we feel that we are exclusive. Only our group is the best. Only through our group only we can realize the God. Or only our group only can lead to the salvation. Something like that. That is the exclusivism or groupism. All other groups, they fail. That's what we think. That is groupism. That exclusivism has no role or no play in the reaching the ultimate. Though you are an individual, he very clearly says, he is an individual spirit and that he has a trans-social function and destiny are forgotten. As an individual soul, you are individual, but you still have a function. That's how the real gurus, though they have realized, they try to uplift the others as well. And if you take the story of Ramanuja, and the guru tells him that this is the mantra which leads to salvation, and it's a very secret mantra. You should not tell anybody. If you tell anybody who is not deserving, you will go to hell. Ramanuja takes the mantra and goes to the top of the Gopuram and tells everyone the mantra. And when he was asked by the Guru, why you did it? So many people will be benefited. Even if I go to hell, so many people will be liberated. That is my idea, he says. So that turns a social function, and he had and as Vijayadhara says, you have to go beyond the egoism, not only the egoism, even you have to go beyond the Sangha. That Sangha is the sometimes it can create the idea of groupism in ourselves. So we have to go beyond that.
Yeah.
If you see, even the Buddha's concepts are Sangam Saranam Gacchami, Dharmam Bhutam Saranam Gacchami, Dharmam Saranam Gacchami. So it is the Dharma which is the ultimate. The Sangam lives, even the Guru, Buddha lives, but ultimately what you have is the Dharma. So you should adhere to that Dharma. That Dharma is the one which you have to attain in this life to reach the God. That is the Dharma of each birth. The as Master says, the idea of taking a birth is to reach the divine. The purpose of this life is to reach the divine. That's what. The goal of this life is to reach the divine. So that is the dharma of every person, every soul. So we have to. That is the attainment of the purest state of spirituality. That is the kaivalya. That is the one which we have to experience or strive for at least. Anything, Vijayadhara?
Yeah, this is the meaning of Kaivalya first time understanding here.
Yeah, kaivalya is to be one with the divine.
So it's also shattering the myth that you can achieve realization only when you are part of some sangha or some association.
No,
Because it's
at some
in
stage you have to leave the sangha also, and at some stage you have to leave the guru also. That is what Master says. Guru also will take you up to a certain level and hands over to the God. That's what he says. Then the God will take over him. That's what Master says. So ultimately, what is the dharma? The dharma is each soul takes a birth to reach the divine. That is the purpose of this life. That's the goal of this life.
Okay, I'll move ahead.
Yeah.
This experience, which goes beyond the levels of subjectivity, knowledge, and grants direct experience of reality as such, is surely the most desirable. But the logical thought is incapable of comprehending such an experience. Move to the next page. It is real, but if reality is only defined as that which can be defined in logical terms of subject, object, and predicate, then such an experience transcends the mental dialectic. These are certain basic difficulties on the path of yoga. much more than what usually are considered to be obstacles of human nature, weaknesses of man. In fact, it is one of the most important features of spiritual life or search for yoga that it arises from conditions of deepest despair and depression, of weakness of heart, hridaya
Hriday Daurbalyam.
daurbalyam, and helplessness, akinchata. Surrender to the highest spirit or God, prapatti, is about the most important first step towards self-recovery and upliftment, ujjivana. It is because it is about the most important that yoga itself insists that one must devote himself to the service or attainment of God or Iswara, so that one may become like him. Worshipping the eternal free Lord of all nature, one grows to that state of being free and Lord of all nature, or live according to the supreme divine being and his nature. To be in conformity with that supreme being or nature is to attain freedom, which is easily available. And when one attains his condition or him, one attains all that could be attained to freedom and naturalness. So we all have this experience of ultimate consciousness, but the first paragraph here, right? It's not explainable in terms of logic, like subject, object, and predicate.
So he very clearly says the logical thought is incapable of comprehending such an experience. It is really, reality can only be defined as that which can be defined in logical terms of subject, object, and predicate. Then such an experience transcends the mental dialectic. That means it cannot be described. It cannot be put in words. It is beyond that. So he illustrates here the basic difficulties which are beyond what we consider as weaknesses, human weaknesses and obstacles of human nature. What we consider as these are something. Once you eliminate those weaknesses, these things will come into play. So you have to be aware of these things and try to overcome these difficulties as well.
Right.
And he very clearly says, surrender to the highest spirit or God. Prapatti is about the most important first step towards self-recovery and upliftment.
There are two shlokas, consecutive shlokas in our Sri Ramchandra's
Yeah.
in the light of natural path. That actually explains this. Like immediately it follows the state of Maya and then talks about
Can you
surrender.
read them?
Yeah, we can, let me get that booklet. So these are published in our Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the light of natural path. 1861 and 1862 shlokas. Ishvara sarva bhutanam riddhesya arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarva bhutani yantra rudhani maya. O Arjuna, the Lord dwells within the heart region of all beings, causing through his wondrous power Maya, all the beings to whirl around, mounted on a machine. And immediately the next sloka, 1862, is Tameva Sharanam Gacha Sarva Bhavena Bharata Tat Prasadat Param Shantim Sthanam Prapsasi Shashvatam. So this is talks about surrender. Unto him alone, therefore, you surrender, O scion of Bharata, with your very being. Through his grace, you shall attain to the supreme peace and the absolute. And the next sloka also is like this is the secret of all secrets. Itite jnanam akhyatam guhyat guhyataram maya vimrushayata dasheshena yatechasi tatha kuru. Thus unto this has been recited by me this doctrine, which is more mysterious than mystery itself. Ponder over it well and fully, and thereafter do as thou willest. It conveys the idea of Maya, and then surrender is the key there.
We'll stop here then.
Yes.
Yeah.